Yo guys, Ponchy here, and today I want to show you quite possibly the most important feature on the Syntakt, certainly if you're trying to do full songs on the Syntakt, and that is pattern muting. Let's go. Alright, so pattern mutes. So we can't talk about pattern mutes without talking about mute modes in general. Now mute modes, what are they? You have your global mute mode, you have pattern mute mode, and then you have quick mute. So you're probably most familiar with quick mute, where you can just press function and mute any of the tracks that way. That works with either global mute mode or pattern mute mode. That's quick mute mode, but the different mute modes, there is a huge fundamental difference between global and pattern. So with global, if you mute any of these tracks and then change to another pattern, those tracks will stay muted, the same exact tracks. Whereas if you use pattern mute mode, those are specific to each pattern. So if you mute, say, track 1 and 2 on pattern 1, and then you switch over to pattern 2, then by default, of course, all the tracks will be unmuted, and pattern 1 and 2 will be unmuted as opposed to what you did with pattern 1. So the way to access the different mute modes is, of course, right here. If you press function and bank, that takes you to whatever mute mode that you used last. So for me, it would be pattern mute mode. Purple means for pattern mute. But for you, it might have possibly been green like that. That's global mute mode. So the way to access the different mute modes is to just hit it twice. Hold function and hit bank twice. And that can switch between each mute mode. And then if you need to turn it off, just press function and bank. And then when you turn it back on, it will remember exactly which mute mode you were using previously. So that's why mine was already purple for pattern mute mode, whereas yours potentially could have been just green if you've never used the mute modes before, essentially. So let me show you exactly what they do. So I'm going to go to pattern mute mode, and then I'm going to go back to pattern 1. So this is what I have muted for pattern 1. You can see that only tracks 5, 6, and 8 are unmuted. And then if I go to pattern 2, I'll show you real quick. The only one I have muted is track 4. So, okay. So if we press play, clearly see that only these tracks are playing. I don't have anything on track 8, so I could just mute that as well. And then say I want to switch to the next part of the song, hit pattern 2. Then you can clearly see that all these are unmuted except for pattern 4. And then say I want to switch back to the first part of the song. So that to me is definitely one of the most important features of the Syntakt, if not the most important feature. Because unless you're going to just be doing songs on just one pattern, which can potentially get kind of boring considering you're not changing the chords necessarily or anything. Of course, that's a topic for a different video or a different discussion, and that just totally depends on you. But essentially, if you're trying to make full songs on the Syntakt, making use of the different patterns and different banks, then pattern mute mode is definitely going to be your friend. And if you're thinking of buying a Syntakt and you're concerned about whether you can do songs on here because it doesn't have a song mode or something, pattern mute is definitely how you achieve having different sections for different songs. Because if you use global mute mode for every single pattern, you would seriously have to, like, you hit the pattern and then you have to, like, cue your fingers ready to go to, you know, press like a bunch of different buttons all at once. And, like, I mean, I don't care how good you are, that is definitely some hard stuff. So rather than mess with that, we have pattern mutes which are specific to each pattern. So hope that helps you guys. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below, and I will see you in the next video.